All right, good afternoon to you. I'm Fox 26 meteorologist Ramisha Shade. We have a monster, a whopper of a hurricane, a very dangerous and scary hurricane churning out there in the southern Gulf of Mexico. We have a lot to talk about. There have been some new developments with this latest advisory from the National Hurricane Center. And if you have friends, family in the path of this hurricane, you certainly need to be reminding them to take this seriously and to get out of harm's way as fast as possible. I'm talking about Hurricane Milton, and it has jumped back up to a Category 5 hurricane as of this latest advisory, 165-mile-per-hour winds. We are getting a live look at Sarasota, Florida, where we could have around 12 feet, maybe as much as 15 feet of storm surge as we go into tomorrow night, as Milton is expected to make landfall right around this area. You can see right now we've got the thick clouds. We've had some periods of light rain showers, not looking too bad right now. But the main thing at this point is that folks that live in this area that we're looking at are hopefully evacuating, or they're already gone, because this whole area could be completely inundated as we go into tomorrow night and early Thursday morning. So this is certainly a dire situation for parts of the Florida Peninsula. So you can see that we are closely tracking Hurricane Milton, Category 5 Hurricane Milton. Overnight, it kind of weakened on us a little bit. It was still a Category 4, but it kind of lost that well-defined eye, and it went through an eye wall replacement cycle. Now, usually when a hurricane gets that strong, it was up to 180 miles per hour, it can't maintain that strength for very long. So it did kind of collapse a bit. It went through an eye wall replacement cycle, but this afternoon, that eye has popped back up. It is looking very healthy, and the pressure is dropping. This hurricane is getting stronger once again, and unfortunately, it's getting stronger as it gets closer to the state of Florida. So notice that well-defined eye once again, pressure's dropping and that wind speed increasing. So of course we've got hurricane warnings out for a big portion of the Florida Gulf Coast, and even on the east coast of Florida we've got some hurricane warnings. And across Houston and southeast Texas, we are on, of course, the dry side of the Gulf. We've got a lot of dry air rolling in, so no weather worries here. But of course in Florida, conditions will certainly be going downhill big time as we go into the next several hours. Let's talk about where we've been so far for this 2024 hurricane season, and it's been kind of up and down. We've had some quiet periods, but we've had some super busy active periods as well. Of course, we started off with Tropical Storm Alberto, then we went to Beryl, which hit the Houston area as an 80-mile-per-hour Category 1 hurricane, but of course briefly it was a Cat 5. So far we've had 13 named storms from Alberto all the way down to Milton, which is now a Category 5 hurricane. We've had 9 hurricanes, and 4 of those hurricanes have become major hurricanes, including Hurricane Beryl, Hurricane Helene, Hurricane Kirk, and now Hurricane Milton out in the southern Gulf of Mexico. The next name on the list would be Nadine. Hopefully we won't have to worry about Nadine anytime soon, but it is still a possibility. Now, we're talking about Category 5 Hurricane Milton. Just how strong is that? Well, it's not good news. It's basically as bad as it gets. We're looking at the Saffir-Simpson scale. This measures hurricane wind speed and the potential for that wind damage as this hurricane makes landfall. And it goes all the way from a Cat 1, 74 to 95 mile per hour winds, all the way up to a catastrophic Category 5. That's 157 mile per hour winds or greater. Now, Milton has re-strengthened back up to 165 mile per hour winds. So this is a catastrophic, potentially deadly hurricane heading towards Florida. You will notice once again, it has a very well-defined eye wall, and it is looking very healthy, and it is creeping closer to the state of Florida. So let's get down to the specifics. This is the latest advisory from the National Hurricane Center for Hurricane Milton. Movement is to the east-northeast around 9 miles per hour. So starting to pull away from northern sections of the Yucatan Peninsula. You can see Cancun, Mexico right there. We've got Milton that will continue to push closer to Florida. That pressure, like I said, has been dropping, and it will continue likely to strengthen. Those winds are up to 100 165 miles per hour right now, and it could get a little bit stronger. The forecast does show it weakening, though, as it gets closer to the state of Florida, back down to a Category 4, 150-mile-per-hour hurricane by 1 p.m. tomorrow. And then right around landfall, or just right before landfall, hopefully it will follow what the models are saying and weaken back to a Category 3. 1 a.m. Thursday, forecast calling for a 125-mile-per-hour hurricane. However, even if this scenario pans out and it does weaken to a Category 3, all of that water that has been piling up in that Category 5, Category 4 hurricane will still be there, and we're still going to have a massive storm surge, likely greater than a typical Category 3 hurricane would bring. So it's still going to be a lot of devastation, most likely, the potential for a ton of damaging wind, and of course several inches of rain that could lead to some flash flooding. So we're hoping for the weakening, but even at a weaker state, Hurricane Milton will still produce humongous impacts to millions of people across the Florida Peninsula, especially Tampa, St. Pete, Sarasota, Bradenton, and even over into Orlando. I think Milton will still likely be either a Category 2 or strong Category 1, even as it pushes over the Orlando area late Thursday morning into Thursday afternoon. So once that happens, Milton will start to exit the Florida coast and push into the western Atlantic by Thursday evening, Thursday night. It will start to lose those tropical characteristics as we go into the next couple of days late in the week. And by this weekend, it's going to approach Bermuda as a post-tropical cyclone, maybe bringing some wind and rain, but it will be in a much weaker state, thank goodness, by then. But Florida definitely right in that danger zone, right in the path of this dangerous system. So let's check out the watches and warnings, and they are abundant. Notice the red up and down the western coast of Florida, that Gulf Coast from Cedar Key to Tampa Bay to south of Fort Myers. That is a hurricane warning. That means hurricane conditions are likely going to start happening within the next 24 to 36 hours. So you need to rush your preparations to basically be ready for a monster storm. And if you are in an evacuation zone, you need to get out immediately, preferably by tonight, because by tomorrow those conditions will start to go downhill. As far as the east coast of Florida, notice there are hurricane warnings here as well. Fort Pierce up to Daytona Beach and Orlando will be dealing with hurricane conditions as well, even though they're a little bit farther inland. So widespread impacts. We've got several hurricane warnings out. We've got tropical storm warnings out on the north and south end of those. And we've got a big potential for a ton of wind with Hurricane Milton. I want to show you this graphic because it tells the story. Notice that darkest color right over Tampa and Bradenton. That is an area that by Wednesday night, early Thursday morning, right around landfall, could experience wind speeds around 111 miles per hour or greater. Even over towards Orlando, we're talking about the potential for winds around 74 to 110 miles per hour, even though Orlando is a little bit more inland. So all across the Florida Peninsula, the central Florida Peninsula, we're going to have probably a big swath of widespread wind damage, and that's going to equal maybe roofs being ripped off, car damage, and a ton of power outages. Exactly what you don't want to have to deal with. So this is just the threat from the damaging wind associated with Hurricane Milton. So that will likely start to happen, especially Wednesday evening, Wednesday night through early Thursday morning. This is another side of it, the tornado potential. We can't forget about that. Anytime you have a landfalling tropical system, especially one this strong, there will be the risk for tornadoes, especially to the east of that center of circulation. So this area shaded in yellow will have the risk for a couple of those storms to start to rotate and produce tornadoes. So that is going to be another big risk for those that did not evacuate. So there are going to be multiple hazards, multiple threats, and they are all going to be very dangerous threats. We're also talking about another huge threat, which will be storm surge. Like I've been saying, that big wall of water just comes crashing into the coast, and it is going to have the potential to be taller than a one-story building. We're talking about 10 to 15 feet potentially of storm surge right around Tampa, St. Pete, Bradenton, Sarasota. So this could be catastrophic and deadly to anyone who decided to stay right along the coast. So hopefully all of those folks that live right along the coast have retreated farther inland or have just completely evacuated this entire area, because this is certainly going to be a dangerous situation. As far as rainfall, that's going to be an issue as well. Rainfall could amount to maybe a foot for parts of the central Florida peninsula. We're talking about maybe 5 to 12 inches of rain. And you can see that area in white there. That is more than 10 inches of rain. That's in the eastern Gulf. But even over towards Tampa and Orlando, that lavender color equals about 10, 11, maybe 12 inches of rain. So that is going to really hike up that flash flood threat. So many hazards that we are monitoring as Milton gets close to the state of Florida. Our exclusive Fox Model Futurecast showing this storm wrapping up, getting even tighter, staying pretty strong. Like I said, maybe right before landfall, a little bit of weakening, but even if it weakens to a Cat 4, Cat 3, it is still going to be a monster of a storm. You can see that eye wall right over Tampa by 1 a.m. on Thursday. So I think 11 p.m. Wednesday night, midnight, 1 a.m. into Thursday morning, that's likely going to be the landfall time. So if we get that humongous storm surge, that's likely when it's going to be happening during the late night hours. And that's not good, because people that decided to stay may be asleep and not really know what's going on. It's going to be really dark. So yeah, it's not a good situation. So this is going to be a late night storm that comes in late Wednesday into Thursday. It quickly rolls over to Orlando by 7, 8 a.m. Thursday morning, likely still a Category 1 or Category 2 hurricane, and then fairly rapidly pushes off of the east coast of Florida and into the western Atlantic. This is going to be around 7 p.m. Thursday evening. It starts weakening, losing those tropical characteristics, and like I said, by this weekend could bring some wind and some rain to parts of Bermuda. But for now, it is going to be a huge problem for the state of Florida. That's not the only storm that we're monitoring. We also have Leslie, which was a tropical storm, but as of that 4 p.m. advisory, has jumped back up to become a Category 1 hurricane out in the central Atlantic with 75-mile-per-hour winds, gusts to 90 miles per hour, movement to the northwest at 14 miles per hour. Here's the good news with Leslie. Even though it is pushing northwest, and you may think, oh, is it going to get to the U.S.? The answer is no. Over the next day or two, it's going to take that turn to the north. By this weekend, it's off to the northeast, rolling away from the United States. So that is good news. We shouldn't have to worry about Leslie. We are monitoring another area that could become a tropical system. This is a non-tropical area of low pressure, and this is going to be close to the Bahamas. And there's the potential, as this pushes northeast, that it could develop over the next few days into maybe a tropical depression or tropical storm, but the chance is very low, only 20%. So likely not going to happen. And one more area that we're monitoring way out in the far eastern Atlantic, just off of the western coast of Africa. This is the potential for another tropical wave to get going and turn into our next tropical depression or tropical storm. Right now, chance of that happening over the next 1 to 2 days, 0%. Chance of that happening over the next week, 20%. So we've got several days to watch that one, but of course we are most concerned about what is going down with Hurricane Milton. We've got super warm water temps still all across the Gulf of Mexico. Notice those water temps in the 80s. We've got Milton in the southern Gulf now, and check that water temp out there north and east of Cancun, 85 degrees. So that is super steamy water that will continue to fuel and likely strengthen Milton as it gets closer to Florida. It may run into an environment that is a little less favorable for that strengthening. So we are expecting it to weaken a bit, but it is still going to be a powerhouse of a hurricane, likely still a major hurricane. And that wind field will likely start to expand. So it may be a little bit weaker, but it probably will be a larger system. So that means more widespread impacts. So we've got Hurricane Milton, which is a monster in the southern Gulf, but we've still got to get through the rest of hurricane season. So we're looking at our likely formations zones, the areas where we could have more named storms popping up for the rest of this month. And notice the highest chance in the western Atlantic, southeastern Gulf, and northwestern Caribbean, although there's a chance in the yellow that we could have some action going on, but it is a slightly lower chance. So in general, as compared to September, October usually not quite as active with our hurricanes and tropical storms. But as you can see, we can still have super scary, very dangerous, and very large, powerful hurricanes even in October. Let me show you where we've been so far for this season. So far, we've had 13 named storms, 9 hurricanes, 4 of those major hurricanes. So we are very close to the average for named storms. We are now above average for the number of hurricanes, and we're slightly above average for the number of major hurricanes. So if you're starting to think that this season was going to be a dud, it certainly has not been. It has really ramped up in recent weeks, and we now have these numbers soaring. Of course, the NOAA forecast officially called for 17 to 24 named storms, 8 to 13 hurricanes, and 4 to 7 major hurricanes. So we've already reached that number of hurricanes and number of major hurricanes that NOAA called for. Not quite the number of named storms, but we've still got the rest of October and all of November. So we likely will be in that range that was predicted by NOAA, especially by the end of the season. So like I said, we've got to get through the rest of October. We've got all of November, so don't let your guard down. We won't have to worry about Milton in the Houston area. So this time around, we escaped the wrath of this hurricane, but we may not be so lucky the next time around. So make sure that you are staying alert and make sure you have your emergency hurricane gear ready to go and know your evacuation routes. If you got friends, family in Florida, make sure that you call them and check on them and make sure they are listening to those local officials. If you're being told to evacuate, you need to get out as fast as you can because this is not your typical hurricane. Milton is catastrophic potentially. It likely will be a deadly hurricane. We hope that doesn't happen, but it is certainly very powerful and it's not going to weaken that much. So certainly take this seriously. All right, we'll continue to give you updates day by day, but stay safe out there. That will do it for today. I'm Fox 26 meteorologist Ramisha Shade.